All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Thinking Out Loud podcast. Today we have another extraordinary episode of what's going on recently regarding immigration, regarding ICE, and the whole situation in Minnesota. And for this, I would think there's no better person to bring into the podcast than Ken Cuccinelli. He was the first inaugural guest that we had here at the Thinking Out Loud podcast, and it's been awesome to have this relationship with him. And he was the former deputy secretary for Homeland Security under the first Trump admin, and he also ran USCIS, so which is the legal system for giving citizenship to immigrants during that first admin too. So obviously a lot of experience in that realm. And Ken, if you want to introduce yourself.
Well, Eduardo, it's good to be with you. And in addition to being the acting deputy secretary there in the first Trump administration, before that, I was Virginia's attorney general. And so I have a state perspective on what's going on in
Even
Minnesota
better.
as
Yeah.
well. And in that role, I also got to work with law enforcement. People don't realize the Department of Homeland Security is the largest collection of law enforcement agencies in America. It's not the Department of Justice, it's not the New York City Police Department. And ICE is one of those law enforcement agencies. And they have a tough environment whenever you bring crowds into things, as they have in Minnesota. And over the last year, with the President Trump campaigning on being an aggressive
Yep.
enforcer of immigration laws, and getting a lot of support on that basis, especially compared to Joe Biden's open borders,
Yeah.
now here he is doing it. And, it's easy to second guess how people do things every day. It's called Monday morning quarterbacking, but here on a Friday. But nonetheless, they've done a good, aggressive job. They have, as the president promised, prioritized people who've committed other crimes. But they've encountered states like Minnesota, cities like Minneapolis, that won't not only won't cooperate, but are actually stirring up violent opposition.
Hmm.
And whenever you have that happening, you're creating a recipe for disaster, as we saw with Renee Good and Alex Pretty.
Hmm.
Um, they were not in a place they should be. They were stalking law enforcement at least. Um, but nobody wants anybody to die, and those outcomes are tragic. But that doesn't happen if you're just protesting. They
Hmm.
weren't protesting. They were stalking and obstructing. Protesting is when you express your political views in a place, whether it's a street corner or marching down a street or what have you, but it isn't in the midst of law enforcement operations, which
Hmm.
is what all of them were attempting to do. And flipping to the ICE agents, they don't train to be stalked. They train to deal with fugitives, including violent fugitives, and how to control and keep as safe as they can those situations, but not the situation that has been stirred up in Minnesota, particularly when the local authorities are in on it
Hmm.
instead of helping to keep the peace, which is what their own police are supposed to do. So, it's been a they've come a long way from when I was deputy secretary
Hmm.
uh, in 2019, 2020 time period. A lot more aggressive on the deportations this
Yeah, of
term,
course.
Trump term. And that could be done a little more smoothly. But the best way for it to be done smoothly is what Tom Homan said this week, is for local officials to cooperate and hand over criminals at jails. Then they need a lot less ICE agents in the community, and that's what they say they want.
Yeah,
So
no,
they
that's
haven't
true.
achieved
It's
it.
true. Yeah, I mean, in a world where state government and federal government can cooperate, of course, everything would run smoothly. But of course, that's not what we've been seeing. And
Mhm.
thanks again for like being contextualizing everything from your end. But I wanted to ask more specifically on the two cases that you mentioned on Preddy and Good. Um, so both these cases, we had U.S. citizens being shot and killed by ICE agents in what the defenders were calling protests and what the pro side, the government, the Trump administration calling violent acts of trying to stop law enforcement. They nonetheless, two citizens, U.S. citizens, got killed by federal agents, and the main response that I've seen people give in favor of these is just that it was self-defense, which would be a valid response for the use of force. But I wanted to hear from your side because from what I've seen in the videos and from what I've heard of information from both sides of the spectrum, um, my judgment is that Renee's case seemed like she was going to run over the ICE agent, and in fact, the ICE agent went to hospital for a few weeks with internal bleeding and whatnot. So from my end, it seemed like there was some type of aggression. But however, from Preddy's case, it didn't seem like he was being aggressive at the moment. I've seen videos of him stalking ICE in other weeks, but in that moment when he was apprehended and then shot a few more than once, I might add, he wasn't being aggressive. And in fact, the biggest the people that were more upset with his death were actually Republicans because they were like, well, if people can shoot people for carrying legal weapons as their Second Amendment right, you can't be pro Second Amendment and pro shooting people with guns that they can't own legally. So I'm just trying to understand what's your point of view. Do you think those both cases were self-defense? How do you stand on this?
So, having been in a position of dealing with these situations more than once in my career, we have to realize that the conversation we're having is well short of with all the information available. And there is a good bit of video of the first incident,
Mhm.
not nearly so for the second incident. The Renee Good, there's a lot of video footage, including from video footage from the agent who was carrying a cell phone and, was clearly surprised. Just you can tell from his own cell phone, was clearly surprised and didn't expect Renee Good to move the car, especially while
Uh-huh.
he was walking around it, walking in front of it. Um, and you can tell that because he sort of grabs the car with the hand with the cell phone in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what and he didn't drop the cell phone, but it was clearly a surprise to him. Um, we had the footage I've seen of the Preddy situation is just one angle from no one involved in it from a short distance away. And your comment about the discussion about the fact that he was carrying a gun and he was legally authorized to carry a gun. Well, that's something that I certainly have a lot of respect for as a Second Amendment supporter.
Of course, yeah.
Uh, and the primary reason to be able to carry outside your home is typically self-defense. But when you're going to walk into I mean, you're going to go commit a crime. You're going to go obstruct law enforcement. And that was his purpose and intent. When you're armed, when you commit other crimes and the agents have to deal with you, you're now a criminal with a gun, not a law-abiding citizen with a gun. And so we do need to make that distinction in favor of the agents.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what any of these people are thinking. And of course, we now know this guy had been stalking ICE agents before. And well, we're saying ICE, but there were CBP agents involved as well, officers. And I'm not even sure of the mix.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's not clear whether those who were dealing with him on the day Preddy died were aware that he had previously been stalking agents, which is why, you and I are talking without full information. That's what the investigation is for. What it was the basis of their decision uh, for the first person to shoot, for the second person to shoot, and so forth. What was going on there? And I think we'll learn more as time goes on. My starting position is to be very protective of agents who are out there with people intentionally and unnecessarily injecting themselves in a threatening manner into a law enforcement situation. And that's indisputable. And with so many people and so much heated rhetoric going on that these people are participating in, if you're an agent, you have to be concerned that at any moment any one of these people can turn on you with deadly force.
Yeah, of
And
course. But again, uh, you can't just out of the blue assume just because someone's, carrying a gun, they're gonna point and shoot at you. Especially as you said, we don't know that they know that that
yeah,
threat
we
exists.
don't know the circumstances on
Yeah,
which you would basically judge the case.
yeah. But
Um,
what I'm asking is like, if intent uh is enough, what's to limit, any ICE agent or any law enforcement agent for that matter to just stop a good abiding citizen with intentions as the agent supposes to do harm without any any solid evidence that we're going to actually do harm and just take him down and shoot him without any procedure. Like what separates uh, a good intentioned citizen carrying a gun around the street, legally owned a gun, from someone who's uh, trying to actively kill ICE agents with that gun? How can we distinguish that in every day?
so that's a great question. And if you're an ICE agent, how do you
You
do
don't
it?
know. Yeah.
You don't know.
Hmm.
And one of the key things on a day by day basis, if you're an ICE agent, is you want to get home.
Yeah.
You want to go
I mean,
home
you're
that
a
night.
person, right? You have.
Your wife or your husband wants you to get home that night. Your kids want you to get home that night. And this is an everyday thing. Even the military, we don't ask to put on a gun, go to work every day, and stand between us or potentially stand between us and evil every single day with the knowledge that they may need to pull that gun and use it with only a moment's opportunity to make decisions on what information they have. No one else in any other profession is asked to undertake that kind of pressure. So
Hmm.
my that's why my starting point is to support the agents. That is not a license for law enforcement to do whatever they want. And it's easier to see with what little evidence we have available why the Renee Good shooting was a legitimate act of self-defense, and in the Preddy case, it's harder to see that. And that'll play out. Both there'll be a federal investigation and there will be a state investigation, and both are going to come to their conclusions. So, um, for us having this conversation um, is one thing, and it's important to talk through these are serious issues, but realize that where the rubber meets the road is those agents in that moment have to make that decision with
On
their
the
lives
spot.
on the line as far as
Yeah.
they see it.
Hmm.
And I I set up with three other lawyers a gun firm that we ran for 5 years to protect law-abiding citizens. I'm very serious about protecting
Yeah, of course.
law-abiding citizens' rights,
Hmm.
but I I keep hearing reporting of these protesters. Protesters are not chasing law enforcement around. They're not posting up uh, law enforcement operations on websites. That's what these folks are doing. They are hunting ICE and CBP agents. And that's how the agents see it. They're being hunted while they're conducting their job and removing criminal illegal aliens off the streets. So um, once you're breaking the law, if you're carrying a weapon while you're breaking the law, I got news for you. You're now
Yeah, of
breaking the
course.
law.
Of course.
And so, the idea that Alex Preddy was a law-abiding gun owner ended when he
No, 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 I'm
started
not saying that. I'm
obstructing.
just saying it's
Well,
impossible
but
to know
other
if he
people
wasn't
have.
or were, right? Yeah.
Other people have said
Oh,
that.
of course. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
he stopped being a law-abiding gun owner when he started obstructing law enforcement, and he became a threat. Now, you can still question, was the threat dealt with appropriately? And I think that's a very legitimate question in this case. Alex Preddy is probably not a person I would appreciate very much on a personal or political level, but that doesn't mean you get to shoot him
Hmm.
or that is a proper outcome. And the investigation will tell on that one. And I would note with in terms of the number of shots, I don't actually know the number. I understand more than one agent was shooting. It's really a shots per agent is the way to look at that because they're all stop the harm. They take their own action, whether
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
agents
yeah,
are
of
or
course.
not.
You don't know if
And
the other
then
guy's doing
when
it
that
too.
comes to
Yeah.
an end.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, if they're actively putting out, we're going to hunt these agents, and I've seen some rhetoric, especially coming from, which is really interesting to me, coming from the state government and some people
Yeah.
of the Democrats in Minnesota being like, these people are here to hunt you, these people are evil, you should try to fight them with your life. Like that's obviously gonna inflict some conflict there. But my question then becomes, are you just gonna assume everyone's gonna hunt you down? Because as we talked before, and as you well pointed out, of course, the safety of the agents is really important. We don't want these people that are doing that are serving our country to be in harm's way for no reason.
Right.
But then again, we don't want to create a world where you're guilty until proven innocent, right? And and that's the argument where I'm seeing from a lot of my more libertarian friends and more Democrat friends, and I think it's a fair question, right? So, um, are we getting in a world where you have to prove that you're just going about your
Well,
day instead of,
remember, Renee Good and Alex Preddy weren't the subject of the illegal immigration enforcement.
yeah, yeah, no, of course, yeah,
They interjected themselves into it.
uh-huh.
And so they they're
No, I think
were
Renee Good
not
is
they were
a special case,
lawbreakers.
yeah. Hmm.
So the real question is, was it okay to shoot these criminals under these circumstances? Because they were interfering and obstructing law enforcement. That is a felony under federal law.
Hmm.
And when you commit a felony while armed, you've committed another felony. And with mandatory minimum sentences, because we treat gun crimes very seriously. And that's
Hmm.
something, even as a Second Amendment supporter, that I support.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that I hear in your question success on the other side of the narrative in muddying the water. These folks are doing law enforcement against illegal immigrants, period,
yeah,
full stop.
yeah,
That's not
great,
who these
yeah,
interactions are with.
exactly, yeah. Hmm.
And that's because
Because they're
the
putting themselves in the way.
individuals who would like people to call them protesters, but they are not, they're
Mhm.
law-breaking obstructionists, um, are uh, are interjecting themselves into the situation. Look, folks, these are our laws. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer voted for the laws that these ICE agents are enforcing.
Uh-huh.
All three of them voted for these laws. And they've been on the books for decades. Elections have consequences. This is what the president said he was going to do.
The
And
American people
he's
voted him
going about
to do it.
doing it.
But yeah. Yeah, and to that point, why I think it's really interesting that the narrative shift and the support that shifted in the last few weeks ever since, the focus has been in Minnesota. Um, we've seen an unprecedented amount of people calling for the abolition of ICE. I was reading some polls saying that 57% disapprove of ICE and has said that they've gone too far. 49% support the protesters that were, as you said, the so-called protesters who were interjecting themselves. I'm just thinking, how can this be done? Again, that's what the president was elected to do, right? A large part of his mandate was uh, to get rid of illegal aliens. How can that be done now without harming ICE's reputation and um, without really compromising the the agency itself and the safety of the agents?
So the agency's mission has always had a certain degree of unpopularity associated with it.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's more now than ever, right?
yes, but first I'll say, so what? And then I'll come back and be a little more practical in the political world. Um, it is easier, you're correct, to accomplish your mission if the public supports you in it.
Hmm.
I think you're quite correct about that.
Yeah, I guess my whole
But
point is
there's a
like,
balance in the management and leadership between simply pushing ahead to accomplish the mission, balanced with maintaining what I'll call that PR image.
yeah, yeah, of
And
course. I mean, you're not gonna stop doing your mission just because it looks better.
well, that's right, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you can't continually be evaluating whether there are better ways we can go about doing this. And
Hmm.
Tom Homan's comments this week, look, if Minnesota wants less ICE agents, they can just cooperate with us at their jails. If they just do that, we will dramatically reduce the number of ICE agents
Hmm.
in their town and in their state. Well, they get what they want. We get, meaning the Trump side gets what we want.
Yeah.
Um, the real question is, do they really want that? And unfortunately, the sad answer when you listen to a Mayor Fry is no. They
Yeah.
want by this is hard for most people to understand. Mayor Fry wants violence. He wants chaos. He wants blood in the streets. He wants it. This is not a bug to Mayor Fry. It is a feature. And the reason he wants it is you described sort of polling data that says ICE isn't viewed favorably. He views that as a victory worth the lives of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. He is
Mhm.
willing to see them die. He was willing to see them die before this began. He's willing to see more people die like them to keep it up, as we can tell, because he's continuing to stoke exactly the kind of obstructionist participation by lawbreakers, not protesters, that we have heard him say before these two tragedies occurred.
Hmm. No, I hear what you're saying. I think this is a massive political victory for them. And I think to some extent that's exactly what they want. I just I guess my another way to frame my question would be uh proportion of quantity of illegals in Minnesota is pretty low compared to, bigger cities like New York or Chicago or LA or border states like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So what I'm saying is like, uh, it is a zero sum game. Either you have an ICE agent in Minnesota or you have an ICE agent in Texas, right? Why not start cooperating first and cleaning up house in where there's a lot of illegal immigrants, and where in these states, particularly Texas, the southern states that are Republican, you would have a massive cooperation with the state governments. Why waste and lose so much political capital in what's not a huge payoff numbers wise when you could be doing more without wasting as much political capital?
So, great question. I think the president would say, because I committed to make every city safe, and that if you let sanctuary cities and states, so called, deter you from coming, you have conceded federal authority in that space.
No, absolutely. I
So,
mean, I'm not saying
so
like
they
don't
they
go. I'm
have
just
to they
saying
have to
shift your
take on the
focus, right?
challenge. They have to take on the challenge. And it isn't that there aren't ICE agents in Texas and Florida and so forth.
No,
They're
I'm not
there,
saying that. Yeah.
but you're not hearing that because there isn't a great deal of violence going on with, or surrounding their operations.
Hmm.
And they're doing what you described. They are quietly, calmly, and safely
Very
every
successfully,
day
right?
right
Yeah.
now successfully executing their mission in all 49 other states.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting that in your introduction, I talked about your past with DHS, but you really well pointed out you also you were the Attorney General for Virginia.
Yeah.
How do you see this becoming a larger question of states' rights and federal intervention with states? Because of course, ICE is a federal agency, and the president has the authority to send them to any state he so wishes.
Yeah.
But how does it work if in this case Tim Walz just doesn't want to cooperate, or Spamberger in Virginia chooses not to help? How can ICE execute their mission and do what the president was elected to do without jeopardizing states' rights and this balance of power?
Look, I'm as strong an advocate of state sovereignty. We have a dual level of sovereignty, national and states in this country.
Hmm.
And I was a state attorney general, and I policed that boundary when the federal government was overstepping it. The federal government is not overstepping its boundaries or invading state sovereignty at all by enforcing federal law.
Hmm.
The fact that a majority of voters in Minnesota voted against Donald Trump will take as a proxy for the fact that they didn't want immigration law enforced.
Sure.
But it is immigration, it is on the books. The take care clause exists. Barack Obama himself said,
Hmm.
hey, these laws are on the books. I took
Yeah.
an
I
oath to
mean, Obama
enforce them, and
deported a
I'm
lot of
going to
people
do it.
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, frankly, he deported more people than Trump has deported.
It's true. Yeah.
But with, strangely enough, with no protests. Why might that be? Could it be because these people's primary goal has nothing to do with this subject? It's to undermine the United States and this president. And I think we know that's true with the Antifa folks. And they're not political allies even of Tim Walz and Mayor Fry. I don't know Mayor Fry's first name, but when politicians like that, and I saw it with Mayor Ted Wheeler in Portland, Oregon, when I was at DHS, they think they're buddies now. The they in that statement is the mayor, thinks, oh, I'm doing what they want. They're going to love me. No way. Because Mayor Fry can never, ever satisfy those people, ever. And he thinks he's satisfying them and getting them as his ally. I remember when Ted Wheeler thought the same thing in Portland, Oregon, with the same kind of thing going on every night, every single night, fires at the courthouse and so forth. And you know what their response was? They used laser lights to put on the sides of the building. Mayor Wheeler resign. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. These people will never be satisfied until the United States is no more and their little anarchist world. Every place
Yeah.
can be jazz, and it'll be a nightmare. It's a
Yeah, of
dystopian
course. Uh-huh.
nightmare in the real world. That's what they want, and you can't cede Minnesota or Minneapolis if you're the president, and you can't back out of enforcing federal law simply because you've got lawbreakers who are demanding it. That's the reason to
Yeah.
do more of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Trump should just bow down and say, "Hey, Tim Walz, you don't want me there. I'll stop." That's not what I'm saying. I just think it's an interesting balance that it's really delicate because, as you said, there's two levels of governance, and
And every
uh,
president
yeah,
strikes the balance differently,
of course, yeah,
you know.
yeah. You've seen it all over the place. But something that also caught my eye was that uh, the Democrats' rhetoric has, of course, been completely in favor of Renee Good and Alex Preddy and completely against ICE. Um, and I'm just thinking, coming to the 2026 midterms, how do you think this is going to be seen? Because, for example, if they get a majority of the House or in the Senate, more specifically, more probably the House,
Yeah.
it's going to put a wrench into like funding for ICE in the next few years, for example. So, how do you think this shift in perspective is going to affect ICE's operation down the line?
And when I was at DHS working under President Trump, the Democrats did have control of the House. And so that dynamic was very real that you're describing. And statistically, historically, the Democrats are likely to take the House.
Hmm.
So we're likely to see in a year mixed government of some kind or another. Now, interestingly, this president and this Congress in the last reconciliation bill set aside a pot of money for immigration missions that wasn't time limited. And I want to say on the order of over $70 billion left. So
Hmm.
they sort of built themselves a contingency fund for that situation.
It's
Now,
pretty
that doesn't
smart.
mean
Yeah.
that Democrats couldn't now come put appropriations restrictions on, but the Republicans need not agree to that. And in a government shutdown, the immigration agencies will keep operating because they have a pot of funds under with which to work. So
Hmm.
the Republicans have planned for that in this term of the Trump administration in a way they didn't last time. So that's a very interesting political dynamic.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens at the end of the year. I would say that the way people feel about ICE and how it might affect their voting right now, it's very early in the year,
Yeah.
and voters are very fickle. So the president has plenty of time to turn even that around. And Tom Homan is already doing a great job of that.
Hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. It's a few months down the line. People tend to have short memory. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I have one final question. I know we need to wrap up soon, but last time we talked, you said pretty interestingly that self-deportation was by far the most efficient method to carry out these. And the last time I saw the stats, we had 1.2 million um, uh, illegals that chose to self-deport over the last year, especially because of a really successful DHS program, which would pay for their tickets back or give some perks because of that. Um, this is really working, right? Self-deportation has been pretty effective. Do you think this is going to continue to keep being effective, or you think all the law-abiding illegal immigrants, weird phrase, but like illegal immigrants that
I know,
were
yeah, I know what
okay,
you mean, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
that were okay in
Otherwise,
self-deporting,
law-abiding illegal
yeah,
immigrants. We'll call it
that
that
are
way.
exactly, yeah.
Oh.
Do you think they're
Yeah,
all going?
well, they
What do you
just
think?
they just upped the bonus to self-deport again. I want to say to like 2,600 or something. I don't know where they came up with that
Okay,
number, but you know, basic economics, right? When you
yeah, you're paying
change the
more
value of
people will
doing
do it. Yeah.
something at the margin, more people will do it. So I'm curious how many people have left and taken the money with them. To me, that's the best measure of the floor of people who have self-deported, and I don't know what that number is.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think that the self-deportation number that the administration has reported is necessarily reflecting how many people have taken the $1,000 bonus and
Okay.
been flown home in some confirmable basis. But I don't know what portion of it has. I'd be very curious to know that. And by the way, paying people to leave like that is
It's
very
cheaper.
cost effective.
Yeah,
It is cheaper. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
cheaper, and I'm a cheap guy.
Uh-huh.
And would I
You're a
rather
budget
not
hawk,
lose
huh?
people who've broken our laws money? Yes, but I'd also rather not spend more money. If it costs $15,000 to pick somebody up and put them through the deportation process, and we can pay them $3,000 to leave or 12,000 to go with their whole family, I'll take
Hmm.
the money and run with it
Absolutely. Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. Well, Ken, thank you very much. It's been pretty informative and again, a pleasure to speak to you again. And
With
well,
you.
for the viewer, you're probably I'll be back soon as another guest sometime soon, so stick around.
All right.
But
Happy
hey,
winter.
happy winter. Yeah.